Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah. Welcome to my kitchen table. Today we are going to do a math art project studying M.C. Escher. If you've never heard of M.C. Escher, please go to the library and get his book. M.C. Escher became very famous as a artist mathematician. So the tools you're going to need for this project are an oversized grid sheet of paper, pencil, erasers are optional, a ruler or any kind of straight edge, and crayons, at least 2, 3. I'm using primary colors here. So I'm going to set that aside, bring in my grid paper, and the first thing I'm going to teach you is some algebra terms, an axis point. In algebra, we work with grids a lot, and we start with an axis point. You will learn about a y-axis and an x-axis, but this is where we're starting just with this little art project. After an axis point, then we have a rise and a run. So in this example, we're just going to go up 1, that's our rise, and over 2, that's our run. Kind of make another axis point there. A rise of 1, a run of 2, rise of 1, a run of 2, and then just finish off your paper. So stop and look at that. It just looks like a staircase. But the next thing we're going to do is take our ruler and we're going to connect these axis points. You can use a big marker if you want. Nice little pencil is probably going to work better. I'm going to go both the top and the bottom of that staircase and connect those access points. Now take a moment to just absorb that pattern. Let your brain absorb what it looks like. I'm going to take the blue. Now we're going to do our color scheme. I'm going to take red and blue. Our blue is going to go on the bottom rectangles. Try and do your best to color it all in. Put the blue on all, so I'm coloring all those blue rectangles. You don't have to go this quick. Kind of change the pattern that we were looking at before. Now I'm going to use the red on the upper triangles. I encourage you to practice craftsmanship. Try to stay within the lines. Although usually I'm encouraging students to color outside the lines. This time, because we are practicing patterning in the style of M.C. Escher, we're going to try and stay in the lines. So now look at that pattern that we created by a rise of 1 and a run of 2. Rise of 1 and a run of 2. Then we connected it with our orthogonal lines and then created a color scheme. So I want you to continue that patterning throughout the whole grid and just keep going back, finding that next axis point, a rise of 1, a run of 2, go up, a rise of 1 and a run of 2, but now connect your axis points as you go along. So we're actually just going to cut from that to this. And then connect the next level. And eventually, we're going to stop and do some problem solving here. As I was working on this, I noticed that I had an axis point here, one right in the middle, so I figured I'd put one right at the other end, right in the middle, just going straight across that line. However, I took for my orthogonal line, I went from this axis point down to the very first one. Now that does not match the same orthogonal line that I have for the rest of my grid. So that's incorrect. What I had to stop and figure out is if I go to this point and I have a rise of 2, that means I'm going to have 2 sets of runs, which a rise of 1, a run of 2. If I just took 1, 2 right there, 1, 2 right here, that is where my orthogonal line would go. So you can really do your patterns anywhere on your grid, but it does help to go from one segment to the next and then color in order to keep your patterning all the same. So the next one, I filled in all of the rise and run and all my orthogonal lines, except for back down here. It's always tricky for me to get down to this bottom right corner. So, because I'm an artist, I flip it around and I come around this direction and fill in my rise and run and then my orthogonal lines to finally, eventually end up like this. So this is an example of a different rise and run. Instead of up 1 over 2, we have a rise of 2 and a run of 1. A rise of 2 and a run of 1. So of course our rise over run is 2 over 1. But what's different here is I also separated 2 of my orthogonal sections with color. And if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sections, and 2 are variated with the color scheme, I can say that this is now a ratio of 2 to 10, which also breaks down to a ratio of 1 to 5. This is also great practice for learning fractions. This one is completely different. One of my 5th grade students did this. This is a negative rise over run. So instead of starting at the bottom corner, he started at the top corner. And he had a rise. So when it's negative, that rise actually goes down. A rise of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a much smaller grid. And a run of 2. He had a negative rise of 4 and a run of 2. He also separated 2 of his segments, making it a ratio of 1 to 5. The other very interesting point to this is, even though it's a negative rise of 4, you can see that there's a point of where it stops right at 2. So you could say negative rise of 2 over 1, a negative rise of 2 over 1, because it crosses right at 2 instead of 4. If this is a very complicated and complex lesson, oftentimes in elementary classrooms we'll go back to just having kids cut up single squares and placing them on a piece of paper in a pattern, or taking larger squares and cutting up segments of those and creating a pattern that way. So in review, we learned about our access point, rise and run, our orthogonal lines and how to solve problems, coloring in our color schematic, and then separating some segments for ratios. I hope you enjoyed this math art lesson